Welcome everybody to Intuition Sundays. You hear this tone because this is the fourth time that we are trying to connect with Sandi. Sandi is in the UAE and it's a little bit more challenging to connect from there. Okay, so we're gonna try again, and I know this time is gonna. I feel it. Yes! Oh, that's nice.
Okay,
Now we
good.
can relax and talk.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for the patience. I
Yes.
think that,
Oh,
yeah, I think that some of them we lost them because I said, okay, I think this is not gonna happen, but yeah, I talked too
yeah.
soon.
Good.
Okay. You're cutting a little bit. So last time we had the same problem. I don't know if you have headphones. It might be useful to use
Okay.
them, it's not gonna cut too much.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my God! Finally, yes. Oh well.
Okay.
Okay, so just to introduce you to what we're gonna do, it's just my second episode of this little show that I started last week that is called Intuition Sundays. I'm gonna sit and chat with some of my friends and some experts about different topics, but let's say the leitmotif is, of course, intuition. All the topics that we're gonna discuss are in a way or another related to intuition and are practices or maybe let's say disciplines, or in this case readings that will help us to enhance our innate ability to connect with the intuition and to know our own truth. So today we are talking
Yeah.
with Sandi mainly about
Hello.
tarots. Yes. So
It's
if
the
you would
only
like
thing
to
I know
introduce. Okay.
in terms of
But
that.
sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when women talk, we open many
Of course.
parentheses.
100%. Yeah. No,
So if you would like
100%.
to introduce yourself
Yeah.
to the audience.
Sure. So basically, I've started my tarot journey. So I've been practicing intuitive readings, specifically focusing on tarot, studying it a bit more, understanding this, I want to say, mysterious tool, and then connecting it to, how we could use it for intuitive readings in general. So started around, actually, I want to say it's one of those products of pandemic. I've always been curious about it throughout my life, even my childhood. And then, we grew up also in a place where it was super common for people in the breakfast time. They go and they take the coffee and they turn it and then they interpretate the coffee readings. I remember my mom used to be, super good in these interpretation. And I've always connected, like, the symbolism that it includes, it, like how people can actually connect to a bigger story with it. And it was just something people used to do. So I was very curious on how we could take readings and make them a story in a way. Then during the pandemic, because of the time that we've had, which was after, like crazy work hours and everything. So I started getting this itch that I really want to learn more about it. And then I signed up for courses. I studied it. I got my first deck, which I will talk a bit more about, your first decks and about decks itself, about the cards. And that's how I got into it, basically, in a nutshell. So, and then I practice a lot on my friends, which I really appreciate them allowing me to do that. And I'm sorry if in the beginning I was like forcing them to actually like let me do their readings. But that was how it actually happened. And after that, I worked with wellness centers, with also by myself with different type of healings as well, trying to understand them a bit more, connecting them to tarot as well. Yeah. So that's
Amazing.
in a nutshell
Thank
how
you,
I got into the
pandemic.
cards.
Thank you,
Yeah.
pandemic, for bringing all these talents out of people and out of youth.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
But that's
so
the thing.
yeah,
Now that I more know about the cards, I understand why in that time it made sense for me to connect then, not in my childhood or not earlier or not now. Because now, when we understand a bit more of how you're able to read, that state of mind that we had during the pandemic and, helped a lot connecting both ways. So,
for sure. When
so
you
this,
cut the
yeah,
distraction, right? You cut the
yeah,
distraction,
yeah,
and I mean, this is how you access the intuition in the first place. Is you try to
yeah,
cut distraction, and we talk about it last Sunday about meditation. This is basically that, like finding a way to concentrate on something. And so that's yeah, it's very true what you're saying about it makes
yeah,
sense that it happened in that moment. Okay, so do you
yeah,
mind to maybe talk us through some history and background of what tarots are and what's the difference between
yeah.
tarots and other cards? I'm very curious.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, I know that there's a big stigma about tarots, and I'm actually glad this is the first time that I publicly speak about it, and with the groups that it's important to first realize what is tarot is really about before labeling it as, oh, something spooky, or like, I don't want to know, or like all of that. So just a little bit of history of what tarot is really about. So actually tarot is inspired by cards that were tarot at the time. So what we call tarot today is not really, there's nothing really called tarot for sure, because the way that it started is that there's a lot of controversy of where was the actual origin of the tarot. Some people tell you that in the 14th century it started because of the Ottoman Empire in the Western came to Western Europe. They had their own gaming cards, so a lot of the cards were inspired by gaming cards. So that's why you have the seat, the shapes, a lot of them that are inspired by the gaming cards. Then after that, you know a big connected to the tarot today is the tarocchi from Italy, which was usually given to the elite at the time in the 1500s, and it was a kind of a palace gaming card deck. Of course, at some point, there's a lot of controversy about it that was also used for divination, for a lot of like mystery readings, etc. But it was purely done for elite playing cards. Now, the symbols that were there, they were very different from our normal, like, the different, the average playing cards that we use today as well. After that, there was, which is what we know today, our tarot deck is done in the 1909, which is actually one of the oldest decks that has not stopped printing since 1909. It has been printing since then until now. This was done by Rider-Waite, which is all the readers basically start reading from it. And what Rider-Waite did, he commissioned an illustrator, actually. He commissioned, let's say back in the time, a graphic designer, to actually, inspired by the card, there's also the Marseille cards, the Tarocchi, there's other more like the Kabbalah cards, etc. There was different type of cards, the gaming cards, inspired by all of that, putting set of rules to create those paintings, let me say. And then that's when Pamela Coleman, who's the illustrator who did the Rider-Waite's card, came up with the shapes that we have right now, with the decks that we all use right now, which is always starts with the Fool card, the Zero, the Fool. So, and they label the whole deck as a journey of the Fool. So this is like, you actually see it from the Zero to and then you have the tens, and then you have the different major arcana, minor arcana, etc. They're all inspired by different type of decks. So that's why you see some cards like, oh, but this is the same as Tarocchi, but actually if you look in details, it's a bit different than all of that. So this is what tarot is about. It's a set of images done by experts at that time, who put paintings and symbols at a certain way, let's say, and there is guides around reading it. There's a system around reading it. There are symbols that actually have a meaning, so you can understand it. So that is what tarot. Of course, now in the modern age, and even in the back, they change the shapes in terms of the designer or the illustrator or the style that the painter wants to do. But it kind of follows the same aspect. That's tarot. However, now we also have a lot of oracle cards that are people are more common to use. The angel card is one of the type of oracle cards. Now, if you want to think about a situation, oracle card kind of, let's say, gives you those big picture guidance. They are done usually with a specific theme, and this theme, each card has a different meaning, and usually is followed by a book to understand a bit more about the meaning of the card. What tarot does, it gives you deep dive into the situation or whatever you want to know. It kind of goes inward more than the oracle cards. Of course, there are a lot of oracle cards that can also be used like tarot, but it depends on the type of reading and the energy that's been used in the reading. So it's still a mystery. It's always going to be a mystery. I think it's just always important to, I mean, there's no right answer on how to select the card. I would say, yes, if someone is interested to know about it, to learn about the science and the mystery behind it, it's a very fun thing to know about, especially if you like history. But it's also based on your intuition, let's say, to select which card deck you actually connect with.
Mm-hmm. And so let's
Yeah.
say if you have to give an example of I come to you and I want to know something about a situation, you would decide what to use, which card
Yeah.
deck, tarot or oracle, or I would
Yeah.
decide, like,
Yeah.
how does that work?
So the traditional set of reading for cards is that what cards does, this is very important before even selecting the cards, to understand what comes up in a reading. Like, why do we need these readings? What when you come for a reading, is that what's the purpose first? What's the objective? This is very important first before selecting the cards. The cards are actually, just like I said, it's going to paint a picture for you, so what happens in the setting is that you come with a question or with an intention, or maybe with not knowing what you really want to know about, or what's the feeling that you have. So what happens is that based on this a little interactions that you have with the reader, is that we start selecting the cards based on the objective of what you want out of it. If you want more clarity, then definitely would say start with the tarot, and 80% of the time it will always start with the regular tarot cards. And then once these paintings, let's say, started coming up in the spreads, which we call, basically the spreads is when the cards are into the cloth, and that's where the fun part starts, because then you have all those symbols that I've talked about in the creation of those cards, and you have them in different positioning, and then this is where it starts making sense. So it's not about really the card per se or which selection of the card, but it's the objective that you want out of it. For example, if you want, what's important with the tarot cards, the normal tarot card, which I'm gonna put here so we can have a reference, these are the regular Rider-Waite cards. So if you see here, there's all those shapes and all those like different symbols. So you always have there's like the coins, and then there's the cups, and then there's the swords, and then there's the wands, and then you have the major ones that are here, which is like, for example, this is the Hermit card. So what happens is, in a spread or in a reading, the selection of the cards that are put in front of you is what creates that dialogue. And that dialogue is important because that's when you start, as an end user or as a person who is looking for guidance, start to think about it. And then that's where the selection of cards becomes a bit more different. For example, if we've already seen we went like very deep dive into the situation, at the end maybe we can go for oracles for guidance, for, like, let's say, to sum it up for you. So it does depend on the objective of the reading, and it does depend on the let's say the process and the flow of the session. It's never one A or B. It's like, it's always a conversation. It has to be relaxed. It has to be as calm as possible, because we're working with intuition here. So it's important that like the reader follows their intuition in interpreting those cards, because there's no really, and this is maybe a bit controversial, but there's no set meanings of any cards. The cards are just paper printed. There's no like, oh, if this card comes, it means tomorrow you're gonna have a car. No, there's absolutely nothing like that. This is a myth, and I'm happy to talk about that myth till tomorrow. It's all about the way that we interpret this card based on the energy that we have in the session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think part of the stigma that you were talking about before is that, okay, you think about tarots as a fortune telling technique that is
Yeah,
like a bit esoteric, and they're gonna tell you what is gonna happen to you in the future. And many people used to, maybe still, I don't know really, but approach tarots when they want to know what is gonna happen, right? It's like,
yeah,
am I
yeah,
gonna get married within a year? Am I gonna, get the job,
yeah,
right? Like, maybe this is a bit of an old way. I think it's changing, and maybe correct me
mm-hmm.
if I'm wrong. So it's not about telling you the future, right? When you
Yeah,
read those cards, it's about,
yeah,
again, I'm trying to phrase it, and you help me here.
yeah,
Is about
yeah,
giving, making making the client, let's say, see that clarity that the client already has inside.
yeah, yeah.
Does that
So
make
basically,
sense?
so I'll tell you how I like what my understanding and basically based on what I've learned. And by the way, when I've learned it, I learned tarot in a very traditional fortune telling kind of like, oh, this if you get this card, this means like that. This is where I find it's a bit unfortunate that a lot of the stigma is still there because I the more that you connect with your intuition, the more you understand that what you're seeing is based on the energy of the person in front of you and the energy that you have. And then you will know that none of these cards are actually about definitive futures. And I always say this, it does not give you absolutes. There's nothing, we cannot say this is an absolute decision or this is an absolute. But however, we can always, and it's okay for the client to have this unclarity because this is what's important that they need this guidance is that when is this going to happen? Am I going to do it? Fine. But before we do that, how do you feel about it? Sometimes we don't even know those answers because we put our, conscious minds into rush all the time. So we forget how we really feel about certain things. So we use the cards to actually tell you how you feel about it. And based on this feeling, you will know the possibilities of it. So it's not about what the future is going to tell, but what the possibility of your current energy could lead you to A, B, or C, or D. It depends on which one you feel connected of what I'm telling you based on what I'm seeing here and based on what you're feeling and if it resonates with you. That's what I always tell to a lot of people, and I have amazing supportive friends that I always try on, and like I say that I'm not going to tell you something that you don't know already. And a lot of people say that, you know what, I already knew this. You just brought it up to the surface. And that's what's important is that before we look for definitive answers, I would say, let's just, the answers are always within. And this is where I feel like now, like you said, it's been changing. People are actually using tarot to more as like a self-discovery tool rather than like, okay, I'm going to go tomorrow to see how my interview is going to be. We can say maybe how you're going to feel about it or how you feel about it right now, because how you feel about it right now is a projection of your energy that's going to be tomorrow in the interview. If I tell you, are you nervous because you know what, this and that, and then you know that actually yes, maybe I need to look into that, then tomorrow I'm going to feel more relaxed because I've addressed a problem that I've been pushing it away. So this is
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like it's important to not think of tarot as, okay, is this yes or no? And there's a lot of, apps and, videos on YouTube's like, okay, and with all my respect, of course, that, this tarot spread is for, Scorpios, etc. But for me, I find it super challenging understanding that how intuition works with the cards. It's super challenging to actually say that, okay, you know what, this is actually going to happen. It's very much personal because each reading it's a personal journey for each one.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love how you
Yeah.
explain it, because it's exactly that. It's a way. I mean, the cards are a way to actually bring you back to the present instead of going
Yeah.
to the future. We are already in the
100%.
future too much, or in the past.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's crystallize this very moment,
Yeah.
and let's ask ourselves some questions based on what the cards are maybe suggesting. Yes, for sure, maybe
Yeah.
what you can tell by the energy of the person, the energy of the cards. And it's actually a way to enhance our awareness and presence, which
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all that we need to then influence the future, right? Because at that,
Exactly. It's
like,
to make
this is
decisions. Yes.
how, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, this is
Yeah.
how the
And
future then evolve and unveils. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why, because we underestimate how much, little decisions or little informations that we hear actually changes our energies externally, because we don't know, like, if someone actually gives us this little boost in terms of the guidance, etc., it's like, not to worry. We underestimate that actually that little comfort actually brings a bit of calmness inside us, and energy is always from inside out, and then it's contagious. People are going to actually pick up on it, and that's how you see transformation happens, and that's what manifestation works, is that you feel those stuff even if they haven't happened yet, is that you feel it, you actually live as if it's already happened in a way, and then you'll start seeing the changes, and you're like, you know what, I've wished for it, but no, you've actually been feeling to get to that for a while now. You just haven't realized it for until, like, it's been triggered. Yeah.
Exactly. Love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Okay. So I got some questions, and for anyone that
Okay.
is listening now live, if you have questions, please drop them in the comments, and then we're gonna answer. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna start from the ones that I received on Instagram.
Okay.
Okay. So first one is, how reliable are tarot card selections and readings?
Yeah,
How
so this is
so?
where yeah, so that's exactly like answers the question about, but as a general point, and I think I've already, I love talking about this, is that we cannot allow anything to actually hold us down, or like, oh, you know what, because I got it in the card, it means I cannot do this, so we cannot also be hostage of anything that really doesn't feel natural to us. If it doesn't feel, this question or this answer feels natural to you, whether a reader tells you, etc., that, you know, we should never feel like, what, this is only going to happen because I've heard it this way, or etc. So, this is where we feel, this is where we do this guidance, is for you to be aware of that. So I would say it's reliable as much as you would want it to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense. Makes sense. Okay, so another question was about how did it start and what's the history. So I think we covered that. And
yeah,
then, what are the most popular decks to use? I think you kind of said that, but maybe we can
yeah,
repeat
yeah.
just.
Yeah, so if someone is wanting to start to learn tarot, I would say start with the Rider Waite, because it kind of sums up. So they usually look like this. Of course, there's a lot of variation from it. So this is how the Rider Waite starts. Like, I actually kept my other show and tell cards there. So there's a lot of artists that they create different ones. There's a Saint Soleil also card deck, because it's also it's interesting for beginners because it has some keywords. But my big note on that: don't be stuck to the keywords, because this keywords does not entitles what the reading is about, like I said. However, if you want to learn the symbols meanings, you can, use that, just so you can understand. Learn first the traditional way, and then completely do your own feelings.
Mhm.
No readings, no reader is the same. This is like my, what I've discovered. Then in terms of oracles, it's important in the beginning to also have some oracles to understand the difference. I would say start with the Osho Zen Tarot. Yes, the Osho Zen Tarot. The Osho Zen Tarot comes with a beautiful book. And basically why I love this and I recommend this for anyone who wants to learn, because Osho's learnings are very much about the person, about you, etc. So it starts kind of triggering your own self-discovery. I would, any book of Osho's is very good to read, especially for the way that the tarots are being made. Also relates to the same learnings. So these two, I would say, are good to start with.
Okay, perfect. That's
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I guess you are giving readings both in person and online, right?
Yeah.
So what's
Yeah.
the difference, and how? Because I did both. I did it in person with someone else and online with you. Um,
Hmm.
so I remember that the first time I picked the card, I think she
Yeah.
made me
Yeah.
pick the card, whereas of course
Yeah.
online with you, I couldn't pick exactly the card. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, if you can talk about a little bit about that and
Yeah.
how it works both ways.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the picking card, actually, it's important, because you would feel like, I think whether you pick, whether you choose a number online, or whether, you close your eyes and you put a pendulum, whatever it is, as long as you're connected, this is what's more important. So whether if it's online, whether if it's with in person, once you have the energy is fluid, energy travels. There's no like place of like a time and place for that. So once you feel you're connected to the reading, it doesn't matter if you're actually on exactly on it or not. Of course, if especially readers who does like for example in centers with a lot of clients one after the other, etc., they would always say, can you touch the cards, can you, etc., just because it gets a bit tiring because it's energy work as well. So it also gets a bit tiring to always like feel like you're 100% tuned into the reading and you're like fine, you know. So that's where it feels like you need to be a bit more involved in that. So also that's why between readings, especially like when I kidnap my friends and I make them allow me to do readings for them, I always try to clean the cards or sage it. So you know you can just feel like the energy is clean. It's like crystals, you know, when you have crystals and you feel like, okay, this crystal has been like, I need to, you know, clean it, cleanse it. You put sage or you put it depending on the crystals, like under the full moon, etc. So it's just in terms of energy cleansing. That's why sometimes it's good to touch the cards because then your energy is there. But in a way, I feel like if you're already connected to the reading, and you have the intention of wanting that clarity, and you've been wanting basically that session, whether it's online or whether it's in person, I feel like it's important of your energy more than the actual selection.
Okay, perfect. I
Yeah,
think we have a
yeah.
question in the comment. I've been told that oracles are easier to do by yourself than tarot. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true because oracles actually comes always with a guidebook. Even tarot comes with a guidebook, but like I've mentioned, because tarot is very heavy on symbols, you need to understand a bit more about the background and the history and the combination of items. But for oracles, like for example, one of my favorite oracle cards is that the mystical healing oracle card. So they always come usually in a big box and the cards are usually bigger as well. So these are like, for example, the mystical. So they come something like that. And for example, if I want the guidance of the day, I get this one is that listen to your intuition, which is great because so this is like, for example, so then what happens is that because of the booklet that oracles come all oracles come from. So, you know, you read basically based what on your selection. So that is, I would say it's very good to have for, you know, anyone like as a daily guidance. You know, it's important to always like have this moment to pause and like, you know, I want to pull a card for guidance. And then it gives you this like kind of connection with your own spiritual beliefs, with your own spiritual connection that, you know what, I took this card, it spoke to me at a certain level. So yes, I would say it's good to do oracles if you want guidance, daily guidance or guidance about certain things. One card, it's not about the spread, it's not about combination, it's no like deep dive. Don't rely on oracles for a very, very deep, connection with situations or anything. Just use it as simple as it is.
Hmm. My
Yeah.
experience with oracles, there was a time that I was always picking. And actually, now that I think about it, it was during pandemic. We all had more time and more calm. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could pause and pick my
Yeah.
card. I had a beautiful deck. And I remember that mainly what the card was doing to me was validating what
Hmm.
I was feeling. Now, sometimes
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
need that, a little bit of validation, like, okay, I'm feeling like this, I'm
Exactly.
feeling like that, I want to do this, I want to do that. But you're like, because of the mind, it's always second guessing, always,
Exactly.
evaluating
Yeah.
pros and cons all the time. And then you're like, okay, intuitively, you pick up this card, and among all the cards, the message that you read on the book is perfectly
Exactly.
validating what you're
Yeah.
really feeling. And so you're like,
Exactly.
okay, and
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
receive that calm that you were talking about
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
it's like, okay, so my intuition is right. It's always right, by the way,
Exactly.
guys. It's just
Exactly.
that sometimes we don't know if it's the mind talking or the intuition talking. But yeah, this is
Yeah. Yeah.
my personal experience with
Yeah.
oracles. And there is one more thing that I would like to say. I think about cards, but also about all these systems that we're using that could be the horoscope. At least, this, again, is my opinion, of course, like tarot, oracles, horoscope, human design now that is so in vogue, so trendy. Like all these, I don't think we necessarily need them
Mm.
to tell us. Uh, okay, let me rephrase it. They are frameworks that we can use to go back to ourselves, to get in touch with ourselves.
100%.
It's not something that we need and we have to follow blindly. Like,
Yeah.
because yes, I think I love horoscope and I love to read about that, but many times there is this, and I said it before when our technical stuff was not working. I'm like, is this
Mm.
Mercury retrograde? So you're always like blaming it. So you start blaming that to the cards, to the
Yeah.
horoscope, to the human design, whatever it is. And instead, like, if any of you is doing that, or you feel that you're doing that, I mean, even I do it sometimes. It's like the moon, the full moon. Instead, I think these systems are powerful when we use them to bring like a radical responsibility back to us. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
go back, and instead, why do you feel like the moon is so? I love them as a framework to validate my intuition and to become more responsible, not less.
Yeah, exactly. We can't put that responsibility on any of those, even for the cars. I always say that. But that's why in the beginning of the sessions, I always say, like, I'm gonna maybe rephrase your questions, because a lot of the questions sometimes are very direct. I'm like, but let's rephrase it, because we need to understand the process. The same thing with astrology, and I love astrology as well, and I feel like there's a lot of connection, but it's when you understand a bit more about like what the effect of that does in the natural world is more than that. Oh, just because this happened and this happened. No, it's actually because this happened, because the energy is different, because the frequencies are different, because you feel different, etc. So once you know those flow, you don't become, like I said, a hostage to this stuff. We have to go back to yourself and follow your intuition. And there's so many sessions, even before when I started to learn about it. Like, I remember there was readings that was done to me, and I knew deep down, like, that's not my intuition is telling me. This is not what I feel deep down, without me knowing how. Because I technically find it difficult to read for myself, but just, it's not what my own intuition is telling me about this situation. And that's where I felt like, okay, you know what? There's not one size fits all. It's actually what you perceive it and the way you connect back to yourself. So definitely, this is why I wanted to do, I was excited to talk about tarot in these episodes, because it all goes back to you. It all goes back to
Mm-hmm.
what you know. It all goes back to your subconscious mind. It's just those, like you said, validation. When you mentioned, by the way, that the oracles during the pandemic were validating your, decision making in a way, it's because you went with that intention. You were relaxed to know, to allow, this guidance to come to you. The same way with the readings, that you're ready for that. When you're ready to
Mm.
receive, you will receive that. So yeah. And by the way, I think also and I remember my friend, she sent me an article about a lot of people during pandemic were seeking tarot. It's been emerging back because of this unclarity that was happening at the time. So this is where it's been, it's been not trendy, but like it's coming back in a different way now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I think humanity, or a part of it, is becoming more and more aware. So that's
Yeah.
why all these systems are coming back to life, coming back to our daily life in without that esoteric woo-woo side, and instead they become powerful tools of
Mhm.
self-discovery. I also liked that you use that word. Self-discovery is the key.
Yeah.
Know thyself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If there are not questions, I
I
think
actually,
I you wanted to do something, right?
yes, I told you it's a surprise, but I actually wanted to do something, because I just wanted to do a small example of when we talked about intuition. And this is something I've been doing it again. I'm mentioning a lot my friend, I do it on my boyfriend. Please, guys, let me, do my cards, etc. So just to show that actually we all can be readers. We all can trust our intuition. It does not need, to have papers with ink and beautiful paintings to know that. But I'm gonna do a small practice, and I'm gonna use the original deck on you. Basically, you're gonna read something that I'm gonna ask you now, which I didn't think of, but
I'm ready.
um okay, maybe I would need some guidance for this week. I have a lot of work, so I just wanted to know a bit of guidance. I'm doing it very publicly, but I'm gonna pull a card. Um, and then I'm gonna ask you if you, and I'm gonna use here the original tarot deck, and I'm gonna see what you're gonna tell me.
Okay. Can see very well. Okay. It's a guy. Oh, number 2. Like a joker kind of looks like. I don't know what's the name of the card, of course, but it's not important, correct? You just told
I
us.
mean,
Okay, so it
there are
seems
different
like,
ways.
okay, so I'm trying to read this card for you. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
you need to tell me like how do I feel this week? Like how can I
Okay.
basically I have a lot of work this week. I need some guidance about it. I
Okay.
mean,
So
not
what
just
I
yeah.
see is someone that is juggling
Uh-huh.
a couple of things, but it can also look like a graceful dance. So
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
it can be looked both ways.
Yeah.
What I see there is that it looks like someone that is really good at what he's doing and just stepping on from one side to the other,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
uh, of course you can see it like more negative, like a lot a lot on his plate, a lot on his hand, like he
Okay.
doesn't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
free hands to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually, see, when you said that, like, there's a lot of, like, before that, a lot, like, he was juggling, he was, etc. It was juggling. And yes, there is positive and negative side of it, but it depends. So yes, it does actually do mean that maybe there's a lot to do. So you're going to be doing two things at the same time in parallel, etc. And I did say that, like, I do have a lot this week, for example, so that clarity that you just answered me with, that's what intuition is about. You didn't know that actually Two of Cards is about juggling finances, because actually this is a Pentacles, and Pentacles is about work, finances, materials. And my question was
Okay.
also about work and etc. and finances. So, and yes, 100% that was the actual, that's how you felt towards it. Now maybe another question could have been like, you know what, you're doing too much and you can't, like, I see you falling. I don't see, because also the guy he doesn't have two hands. You saw him dancing, but some people can say, I see it falling. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
painting, right? So you interpret it. So you just have to trust yourself the way you just read to a stranger, to me, or to someone. You have to do that for yourself. This is just like my message about most trusting intuition. Yes, oracles, cards, astrology, whatever you want to use as a medium, please go back to yourself and just take that moment, that and start small. Like I'm of course it's super difficult even for me to try with big decisions about like just following my intuitions, but then the mind, etc. So just have that clarity. Start with small things,
Yeah, it's
exercise.
hard.
Intuition is it's gonna take a while. It starts with small things, and then it takes a lot of practice to be like,
Mhm.
you know what, I feel like this is the right thing to do without seeking any guidance. But
But
guidance is always good.
that's why, because when you're at the beginning on any path, okay, the tarot reading, but
Yeah,
also in, someone that wants to connect with his or her own intuition, when you're at the very beginning of this, you need to go to someone, a guide. You
yeah,
are the guide in this sense. And then of course
exactly,
when you do it many times, then you can pick up the card and be objective enough to and intuitive enough to read it for yourself. But I think at the beginning is
exactly.
yeah. And there was actually another question that came up, was how often someone would need a reading.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know
I
that
always,
people
yeah,
ask you a
yeah.
lot, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I always say that you will know when you need guidance, and you know when you need that reading. I would say don't try to think I'm gonna read the same question 2 days apart just to test. This is not the right intentions that you want to have when you seek guidance in any way. It's because that means that in a sub conscious level is that you're just one validation for the answer that you want to hear because you were not convinced. So this is the thing, you have to see the real reasons why you want the guidance first, and you will know when you need the guidance. And I would say it's sometimes good to have a set of questions that you're ready with, or intentions that you already have, or sometimes just you want like a general guidance for a certain like phase in your life, etc. So I would say trust your intuition to know when, and listen to your body and your mind when to seek intuitive readings.
Fantastic. Okay. So
Yes.
where do people can find you? How can they reach out
Yeah.
to you if they want a reading?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit.
So they can contact me on TAROTS on my page, and also on the website tarots.com, and on messages on on Instagram, and I'm happy to answer any question.
Okay. Fantastic. Good.
Awesome.
There is
Awesome.
anything else that you would like to add before we close?
No, thank you so much. Really enjoyed actually talking about this. So maybe one day I'll do a
Uh,
more show and tell of different cards. And because it's actually very beautiful, like the more I see cards, the more like, oh, this looks so beautiful. This looks so nice. This connect. Sometimes I get the cards and like after I see them like two times, like, you know what? I don't like them anymore. So that's also it's fun to also do just, you know, in terms of card selection. That was a nice question. But thank you overall for letting me discuss this topic, especially with,
Thank
you know,
you
with what
for the technical. No,
yeah,
but thank you for yeah, talking us through this, because I think we need to know more and remove those prejudice that we might
yeah,
have about it.
exactly.
And plus, if there is this tool, let's use it really to improve our lives. Why not?
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so
Thank
we can wrap
you.
it up. And
Yeah,
just let me just say one thing for everybody to listen. Next Sunday, we're going to have one more episode about how we can heal with horses. So I know it's like a big one and a strange one, maybe for someone that never heard of it. So it's going to be same time, still Sunday, and I'll see you then. Thank you so much,
awesome.
Sandy.
Thank you, America.
Have a good evening.
Ciao.
Ciao,
See
Bella.
you.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Bye bye. Bye.